Hey everyone, today we have quite a lot of things to cover in today's video. I will talk about the status of powder blue tang that I tried to introduce to this tank. I will talk about quite an unfortunate thing that happened to my new innovative marine build. I will talk a little bit about HYDROS controller. I will talk about the new version of AquaticLog app. There's quite a few things to talk about there as well. And perhaps there's a few other things we'll throw in to the mix. So with that said, you're watching Treasure Reef. My name is Dmitry Tumanov, and let's get going. So first and foremost, the powder blue tang. I've shot a video a few weeks ago where I tried to introduce him into this tank, and I've had some trouble with him eating, so he would refuse to eat anything under the sun. So I actually created a new quarantine system. It's a 20 long tank, fully stocked with hiding places and good filtration. So I went overboard with the extra power heads. I've also introduced a dither fish in there, the yellow tail. So first of all, thank you to everyone who's written in the comments below. I've read every single one of your suggestions, and I try to incorporate each one of them. I've also went all out in terms of food, where I've tried garlic, I've tried the Sikkim Entice, I've tried green nori and a purple nori, I've done mysis shrimp, brine shrimp, even I think mussels and even bloodworms. So the guy would refuse anything. So I kept him in the quarantine tank for just under a week, and then I figured that by that point he was not eating anything and he was starting to really starve and start to get really thin, because he was fairly fat when I got him. So I decided to take a calculated risk and introduce him back into this tank. So thought about it, finally decided to do it, threw him in. He was actually fine. First day he had a little bit of scuffs on him because of, I think, the yellow tang, which always a feisty one in here. But after that he was actually totally fine. He healed up very quickly. And every day I was thinking that he is about to die. I have not seen him eat. And yet he's still alive, and I don't think he's losing weight anymore. So he's still not fat, but I don't think that he is starving either. So I have not seen him eat. I've thrown every single thing into this tank as well, and yet the guy is just refusing. So I can see juicy morsels of the mysis shrimp float right by his nose, and yet no bite. So right now this is where we are at. I'm every day checking to see if he's still alive. So far he is. I'm hoping that at some point something will change, or maybe 2 weeks from now or tomorrow he might end up being dead. So this is the status of the powder blue. Second, let's talk about my new build. So in the last video you can see me pretty excited getting the water into the tank. I shot the video, uploaded it, and then I go downstairs and I just habitually check the back of the tank, and I see that there is some dripping. So the water was dripping from the bulkhead. Took me 2 hours to finally get to the bottom of it, but I've tried every single thing. I first thought that the bulkhead was not properly fixed, and keep in mind that I've had this tank running before with no problems. So I've tightened it up a little bit more. I tried to redo like the angles and make sure there's no pressure at any angle. I've tried to drain the water and then get it up there again, just to see where it was coming from, and then eventually I think I figured it out. And I think that this is actually a design flaw by Innovative Marine. So this tank is done by Innovative Marine. I don't think they produce this tank anymore, and maybe that's the reason why. I actually called them and I explained that situation to them. So what is the design flaw in my opinion? As you may have seen from the video, it has the main pane of glass and then followed by an acrylic sheet. And the acrylic is a guard for the overflow, as well as it's this black background for the tank. The bulkhead that goes for the return into the tank goes through the back wall, and there's a hole, there's a bulkhead, and the bulkhead is basically sandwiches together two sheets of material, so glass and acrylic. The issue is that because I've used this tank before, and I think the seal, the way they've glued the two sheets together, it was not air watertight. I'm pretty sure the water got into the space between these two sheets of material, and then it started to crystallize. And then when it started to crystallize, it popped because of the pressure. The acrylic actually popped. So what I noticed, if I run my fingers around the bulkhead area, I noticed a couple of hairline fractures, and I could not figure out what could be the cause of that, because I was very careful with the tank, and also the cracks seem to be coming from the inside pressure. So because of those cracks, the space between those two sheets, the glass and acrylic, are no longer airtight or watertight, and thus the water seeps through this, and then it gets through the bulkhead. So clearly a design flaw, in my opinion. I let Innovative Marine know. Unfortunately, they just suggested that I either put more silicone or try to glue the acrylic or cracks by solvent, which I don't think is a good idea, nor would I want that in my tank. And put another bulkhead gasket on the other side. So again, not something I want to be doing. So there's no more tanks of that size. So unfortunately, I'm scrapping this particular project. And now I've got this beautiful Reef Octopus sump. I've got lots of other equipment that I was hoping to run. And I'm now contemplating on what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to be setting up a different system. So that's what happened to that exciting new project that I had. Now I did have some time to play around with the HYDROS controller. And I must say that my initial impression was very positive. So I think the build quality is very nice. I like the lights. I like how it talks to you. The first hooking up through the application was seamless. But then I actually have hit a snag, and I've spent several days trying to get going on just hooking up the Wi-Fi strip. So after a little bit of back and forth with CoralView, and they were very helpful, turns out that I have two access points in my house, and I think it was a little bit confused by those two access points. Actually, then it becomes pretty technical. You actually have to make sure that the channels that those two access points run on 2.4 gigahertz have to be at least 8 channels apart. So I've had to make all those changes, and the moment I've made that, it actually integrated fine with the Wi-Fi strip. Then I've run into another issue where I couldn't really figure out how to make the outlet programmable. So they have concepts of devices, they have concepts of outputs, and you have to, for somebody who's really used to Apex and how that thing works, I think it's just a different way to look at your programming and the outlets. But the moment you understand how it works, then it becomes very seamless, and it was very easy. So again, I had to look up how to do it, but then once I knew how to solve it, then it was seamless. So this is where I'm at with the HYDROS right now. I've got the temperature hooked up. It's actually spot on. It's very similar to Apex. I like the notifications that I'm getting, probably maybe a little bit too many. I've got, every time when my temperature drops, I get like 20 emails in 1 minute. But then I don't get any more emails. So I think they just need to a little bit change the frequency of how soon or how many emails you're supposed to get. But overall, like I said, I'm very impressed. I like it, and I definitely gonna keep running and experimenting with it, and hopefully in the next few weeks I will do a much better update on this. Now, two more things I wanted to cover. One is I've been playing around with my Ecotech Versa, and I have been moving it from one wall onto another. And when I did this, I remembered one feature that really impressed me about the Ecotech Versa, and that is something that you don't even see when it's running. So you have to remove all of the pumps from the base, and then you will see that the base itself has a tiny liquid level on this, so that when you are hooking it up and you are putting it against the wall, you don't actually need to get the actual level and make sure that it's fully level. So plus I like that there is actually two slits for the screws, so you can again readjust the alignment of this and re-level it anytime you want. So this reminded me of the book I've read on Steve Jobs and his father, who was well, Steve Jobs was adopted, so not his biological father, but his father was a carpenter, or he enjoyed carpentry a lot. And one thing that he was always talking about, what separates a really awesome, great product from mediocre product is, he gave the example of a cabinet. So for example, you have a cabinet or a shelf, and usually the front looks amazing, but if you look on the back of the shelf, a lot of times it's not painted. You'll see the screws, but his father believed in making sure that the back of the cabinet, something that only the carpenter himself would know, it should look as presentable and as good as the front. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for if you want to cut the costs and whatnot, but in terms of caring about the product, I think this is always a very good example of somebody doing something to the next, taking it to the next level. And I must say that here you've got this level. It costs some money to put it in, and you know that once you've done it and you put your pumps, maybe nobody will ever see it for next 5 years while the pump runs. But just coming up with this, I was very impressed. Finally, the AquaticLog. So with AquaticLog, I have made some changes over the past few months. So one of these is the way you can keep track of your inhabitants in your aquarium. So now if you add a new livestock entry, what will happen is the system will automatically try to recognize it. So if you just put in yellow tang, and it doesn't matter if you even sometimes make a small mistake here and there, or you can put yellow surgeonfish, it will actually recognize it as a yellow tank, and it will actually even show you a photo of a yellow tank even if you haven't uploaded your photos. So that will make your library a lot more pleasant to look at and gives you a much better view of your system. So with that said, lots of things this week. Really appreciate everybody's comments, and let me know if there's a few other topics you wanted me to talk about next week. Meanwhile, stay safe, and see you next time.